I was 70 years old the day my world collapsed. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon in my small apartment in Portland, Maine. The autumn sun was filtering through my kitchen window, casting warm light across the worn linoleum floor I'd been meaning to replace for years. I was making tea when my phone buzzed with a message from Beatrice, my best friend since college. The message was simple: call me. Now, Beatrice wasn't dramatic. In the 50 years I'd known her, she'd always been steady, practical, the kind of person who chose her words carefully. That urgency in her text made my hands shake as I dialed her number. "Donna," she answered on the first ring. Her voice was strained. "I need to show you something. Can I come over?" 20 minutes later, she was sitting at my kitchen table, her phone in her trembling hands. She was 72, 2 years older than me, and in that moment she looked every day of it. "I debated whether to show you this," she began, her eyes filled with concern. "But you need to know." She turned her phone toward me. On the screen was a video, clearly recorded at some kind of party. I recognized the setting immediately: my daughter's living room, the modern furniture I'd helped her pick out, the abstract art on the walls that I'd never understood but admired because it made her happy. Then I saw her, my daughter, Delaney. She was 45 years old, beautiful in that effortless way some women have. Her dark hair was pulled back, her wine glass catching the light as she gestured animatedly. Around her sat her friends, women I'd met at various family gatherings, women who'd smiled at me and made polite conversation. Beatrice turned up the volume. "Honestly, I can't stand her anymore," Delaney was saying, and even through the phone's speaker, I could hear the venom in her voice. "She's so needy, always calling, always wanting to know what I'm doing. She annoys me constantly." One of her friends laughed. "Well, just ignore her calls." "I do, but then she shows up at my house. She doesn't understand boundaries. I swear, sometimes I wish she would just disappear." The room erupted in laughter. Not uncomfortable laughter. Not the nervous kind that suggests people know they're crossing a line. This was genuine amusement, as if my existence, my loneliness, my love for my daughter was the funniest joke they'd heard all week. Someone off camera said something I couldn't quite catch, and Delaney shrugged. "She's my mother, so I'm stuck with her. But God, she makes everything about herself. Every conversation is about her health, her problems, her feelings. It's exhausting. I couldn't watch anymore." I turned away from the phone, my chest tight, my vision blurring with tears. "There's more," Beatrice said quietly. I shook my head, but she was already pulling up another message. This was sent in their group chat yesterday. The text was from Delaney. "Mom's coming over for dinner tonight. Kill me now." 3 hours of listening to her complain about her knees and reminisce about the good old days, when I actually wanted to spend time with her. The responses were equally cruel. Laughing emojis. Sympathetic messages about dealing with difficult parents. Suggestions for excuses to cut the visit short. I sat there in my small kitchen, the tea I'd made growing cold, and felt something inside me break. This was my daughter, the baby I'd rocked through countless sleepless nights, the child I'd worked 2 jobs to support after her father left us, the teenager I'd defended when everyone else had given up on her, the young woman I'd helped through her divorce, through her career struggles, through every crisis she'd faced, and she wished I would disappear. Chapter 2. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed, the same bed I'd slept in for 30 years, and replayed every interaction I'd had with Delaney in recent months. Every phone call, every visit, every conversation, searching for signs I'd missed, warnings I'd ignored. The truth was, they'd been there all along. The way she checked her phone constantly when I visited, the short, impatient responses to my questions, the excuses for why she couldn't meet for lunch, couldn't talk right now, couldn't help me with the things I struggled to do alone. I'd attributed it to her busy life. She had a demanding career as a marketing executive. She had friends, hobbies, a full existence that didn't revolve around me. I'd been proud of her independence, even as I'd felt the distance growing between us. But it hadn't been independence. It had been contempt. I thought about my own mother, who'd passed away 15 years ago. She'd been difficult in her later years. I'd admit that. Sharp-tongued, critical, set in her ways. But I'd never wished her gone. I'd never laughed about her with friends, never mocked her need for connection. Had I been a difficult mother? Too needy, as Delaney claimed? I called her once, maybe twice a week. I visited once a month, always bringing food I'd cooked, always leaving before I felt I'd overstayed my welcome. I asked about her life because I cared, because I wanted to know her, wanted to remain part of her world. Was that too much? By dawn, I'd made a decision. If Delaney wished I would disappear, then that's exactly what I would do. Not permanently, not dramatically, but enough to teach her what absence actually meant, enough to make her understand what she'd taken for granted. I called Beatrice at 7 a.m. "I need your help," I said when she answered, her voice groggy with sleep. "And I need you not to argue with me." Chapter 3. The plan took a week to arrange. Beatrice had a sister who lived in Burlington, Vermont, about 3 hours north. The sister, Margaret, was a widow like me, living alone in a small house near Lake Champlain. She'd been asking Beatrice to visit for months, suggesting they could keep each other company through the approaching winter. I proposed going instead. "Just for a while," I told Beatrice. "A month, maybe 2. Long enough for Delaney to notice I'm gone." Beatrice was skeptical. "Donna, she's going to worry when you don't answer her calls." "Will she?" I asked. "Or will she be relieved?" That question hung in the air between us, heavy with the truth we both knew. I packed carefully. Clothes for cold weather, my medications, the few books I'd been meaning to read. I left most of my belongings in my apartment. I was coming back, after all. This wasn't abandonment. This was a lesson. Before I left, I did one thing that felt both necessary and painful. I went through my apartment and removed every trace of Delaney's childhood. The photographs on my walls, the artwork she'd made in elementary school that I'd framed and cherished, the little mementos I'd saved from every stage of her life. I packed them all carefully in boxes and stored them in my closet. If she came looking for me, though I doubted she would, I wanted her to see what absence looked like, to feel what it meant when someone you'd taken for granted was simply gone. I left on a Sunday morning. I didn't tell Delaney I was going. I didn't call to say goodbye. I simply got in my old sedan and drove north, the fall foliage brilliant against the gray sky. Margaret welcomed me with warm apple cider and a room she'd prepared overlooking the lake. She was 75, sharp-minded, with a dry sense of humor that reminded me of Beatrice. Beatrice told me what happened. Margaret said that first evening as we sat on her porch watching the sunset over the water. "I'm sorry your daughter doesn't appreciate what she has. Maybe she will now," I said quietly. "Or maybe she won't." Margaret replied with the bluntness of someone who'd lived long enough to know that not all stories had happy endings. "But either way, you'll know who she really is." That first week, my phone rang constantly. I watched Delaney's name appear on the screen, 6, 7, 8 times a day. I listened to her voicemails, each one progressing from casual to concerned to frustrated. "Hey, Mom, just checking in. Call me back. Mom, I haven't heard from you. Are you okay? Mom, this isn't funny. Where are you?" I didn't respond. Not yet. Beatrice called too, checking on me, making sure I was eating, sleeping, taking care of myself. She was worried. I could hear it in her voice. "Delaney called me," she admitted during one conversation. "She's frantic. She thinks something happened to you." "Let her be frantic," I said, harder than I intended. "Let her feel what it's like to not know, to worry, to wonder if someone you love is okay." "Donna, she wished I would disappear, Beatrice. She laughed about it. Let her live with that wish for a while." But at night, alone in Margaret's spare room, I cried. Because despite everything, despite the cruelty I'd witnessed, I loved my daughter, and hurting her, even in service of teaching her a lesson, hurt me too. Chapter 4. By the second week, Delaney had escalated. She'd filed a missing person report. The Portland police had called Beatrice, who'd assured them I was safe, but choosing not to be in contact. That had apparently satisfied them legally, but it had enraged Delaney. Beatrice forwarded me a text from her. "You know where my mother is, and you won't tell me. What kind of friend are you?" I could picture Delaney's fury. She wasn't used to not getting what she wanted, not getting answers, not being in control. Welcome to how I felt watching that video, I thought. Margaret and I fell into a comfortable routine. We took walks along the lake every morning, wrapped in thick coats against the Vermont cold. We cooked together, shared meals, watched old movies in the evenings. She told me about her late husband, about her children who visited twice a year and called every Sunday without fail. "They're good kids," she said one evening. "Not perfect, But good. They show up. I thought about Delaney, about all the times she hadn't shown up. The birthdays she'd been too busy to celebrate. The holidays she'd spent with friends instead of family. The hospital stay after my knee surgery when she'd visited once, stayed for 20 minutes, and never came back. I'd excused all of it, made justifications, told myself she was building her own life, and that was healthy. But there was a difference between independence and neglect, between having your own life and discarding the people who'd given you that life. On day 17 of my disappearance, something shifted. Beatrice called, her voice urgent. "Donna, Delaney showed up at my house. She's devastated, crying, barely coherent. She thinks you're dead, and I'm covering it up." "What did you tell her?" "I told her you were alive and safe. I told her you needed space." She asked why, and Beatrice trailed off. "You what?" "I told her to think about it, to really think about how she's treated you." I sat down heavily on Margaret's couch. "How did she react?" "She got angry, said you were being manipulative and childish, said you were punishing her for having a life. Then she left." After I hung up, I sat in silence. Margaret came and sat beside me, not speaking, just present. "She's not getting it," I finally said. "Some people don't," Margaret replied gently. "Some people can't see past their own perspective until it's too late. So what do I do?" Margaret was quiet for a long moment. "You decide what you need, Donna. Not what she needs. Not what will teach her the best lesson. What do you need to feel whole again?" That question haunted me for days. The Mirrors, Chapter 5. 3 weeks into my disappearance, I finally listened to all of Delaney's voicemails. There were 47 of them. The first dozen were annoyed, frustrated. "Mom, this is ridiculous. Call me back." Then they became worried. "Mom, I'm scared. Please, just let me know you're okay." Then angry again. "Beatrice told me you're fine but won't talk to me. What did I do? Why are you doing this?" And finally, in the most recent ones, something different. Something that sounded almost like understanding. "Mom, I've been thinking about us, about how I've been." Beatrice said to think about it, and I have been. "I think I know why you left." A long pause. "I found an old photo album at your apartment. The building manager let me in when I said I was worried you'd fallen and couldn't get to the phone. All the pictures of me are gone. All my artwork. All the stuff you used to have everywhere. It's all packed away." Her voice cracked. "And I realized, that's how I made you feel, isn't it? Packed away. Not wanted. Like I'd erased you from my life." Another voicemail, recorded just hours later. I talked to Rachel. She's the one who recorded that video. The one from the party. She said she sent it to you. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I was drunk and angry because you'd called 3 times that day, and I just wanted one evening without obligations." She was crying now. "But you're not an obligation. You're my mother, and I said horrible things. Things I didn't mean. Or maybe I did mean them in that moment. But I shouldn't have. You didn't deserve that." I played that message 3 times, listening to the genuine remorse in her voice. But I also remembered her words. Without obligations. That's what I'd become to her. An obligation. A burden. Something to be managed and minimized. I called Beatrice. "I'm ready to come home," I told her. But not to the way things were. We talked for over an hour, planning. Beatrice, in her practical wisdom, helped me think through what boundaries I needed, what I could forgive, what I couldn't. "You can love her and still protect yourself," Beatrice reminded me. "Those aren't mutually exclusive." I drove back to Portland on a cold November morning, the landscape gray and dormant, waiting for winter. Margaret hugged me goodbye and made me promise to visit again. "You're stronger than you think," she told me. "Remember that." My apartment felt different when I walked in. Smaller somehow. Emptier. Or maybe I was the one who'd changed. I unpacked slowly, putting things back in their places. But I didn't unpack the boxes of Delaney's memories. Not yet. I sat down and wrote her a letter. Not a text. Not an email. A real letter. In my own handwriting. "Delaney, I'm home. I'm safe. And I'm ready to talk. But only if you're ready to listen." For weeks, I've been thinking about that video. About the things you said. About the fact that you wished I would disappear. So I did. I gave you what you wanted. And I learned something important. My absence didn't make your life better. It made it harder. Because despite what you said at that party, you do need me. Maybe not the way I need you, but you need me. The difference is, I can't keep being the person who gives everything and receives contempt in return. I can't keep being treated like an obligation, an inconvenience, a burden to be endured. I'm 70 years old. I don't know how many years I have left, but I know I don't want to spend them begging for crumbs of attention from my only child. If you want a relationship with me, it needs to be different. It needs to be based on mutual respect, not duty, on genuine affection, not tolerance. I'm not angry anymore, but I am sad. Sad that it took disappearing for you to realize I mattered. Call me when you're ready to talk. Really talk. Not to explain or justify, but to listen and understand. I love you. I always have. But love isn't enough anymore. Mom. I mailed it the next day. Then I waited. Chapter 6. Delaney showed up at my door 2 days later. I'd been expecting it, but seeing her there still took my breath away. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, her hair pulled back messily. No makeup. She was holding my letter in one hand, crumpled from repeated reading. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice small. I stepped aside and let her enter. We sat in my living room, the same room where we'd had countless conversations over the years. But this one felt different. The air was heavy with unsaid things. Delaney spoke first. "I read your letter about 20 times, and every time, I wanted to defend myself, to explain that I was just venting, that everyone complains about their parents sometimes, that you took it too seriously." She looked at me, her eyes red. "But the truth is, you didn't take it too seriously. I meant what I said. Maybe not every word, but enough of it. I did find you annoying. I did wish you'd leave me alone sometimes." Hearing her say it out loud hurt worse than watching the video. "Why?" I asked simply. She was quiet for a long time. "Because you reminded me of everything I was trying to avoid thinking about. Aging, loneliness, mortality. Every time you called, every time you visited, I saw my future, and it scared me." Her honesty was like a knife. "So you pushed me away." "I pushed you away," she confirmed. "I made you small in my mind so I wouldn't have to face those fears. I turned you into a nuisance instead of a person." She leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly. "When you disappeared, when I couldn't find you, couldn't reach you, I realized what I'd done. I went to your apartment and saw all my stuff packed away, and I understood. I'd erased you from my life, so you erased me from yours." "Not erased," I corrected softly. "Just put away, the way you'd put me away." Delaney started crying then, really crying, the kind of deep sobs that come from genuine remorse. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. You gave me everything, and I treated you like you were nothing." I wanted to comfort her. Every maternal instinct I had screamed at me to reach out, to hug her, to tell her it was okay, but I didn't move. "And I need you to understand something," I said, keeping my voice steady. "An apology isn't enough. Being sorry doesn't undo the damage. I can forgive you. I already have, mostly, but I can't go back to the way things were." She wiped her eyes. "What do you need from me?" It was the right question, the one I'd been waiting for. "I need you to see me as a person, not just your mother. I need you to respect my time the way you'd respect a friend's time. I need you to call because you want to talk to me, not because you feel obligated." I paused, gathering courage. "And I need you to understand that I won't always be here. Someday, I really will be gone. And when that day comes, I don't want your biggest regret to be that you wished me away." Delaney nodded, fresh tears streaming down her face. "Hey, can we start over?" she asked. "Not forget everything, but try again." I thought about it, about the years ahead, however many I had, about what I wanted those years to look like. "We can try," I said, "but it has to be different. Delaney, really different." "It will be," she promised. "I'll make it different." We talked for 3 hours that day. Really talked. Maybe for the first time in years. She told me about the pressure she felt to be perfect, to have it all figured out, to never show weakness. I told her about the loneliness of aging, of feeling invisible, of watching your child become a stranger. We cried together. We laughed a little too. And when she left, she hugged me tight and whispered, "I love you, Mom, and I'm glad you didn't really disappear." "So am I whispered back. But as I watched her drive away, I knew the truth. I had disappeared. The mother who'd accepted crumbs and called it enough was gone. The woman who'd take her place would love just as deeply, but she'd also demand to be loved in return. That was the lesson. Not for Delaney, but for me. Chapter 7. The following months were a delicate dance of rebuilding. Delaney called twice a week, like clockwork. Not perfunctory calls where she asked how I was and barely listened to the answer, but real conversations. She told me about her work, her struggles, her hopes. She asked about my life, and actually remembered what I said from one call to the next. We had dinner together once a month. She came to my apartment, or I went to hers, and we cooked together, something we hadn't done since she was a teenager. Those evenings were tentative at first, both of us careful not to slip into old patterns, but slowly, something new emerged, a relationship based on mutual respect rather than obligation. Still, it wasn't perfect. There were moments when I saw flashes of the old Delaney, the impatience when I repeated myself, the barely concealed frustration when I moved too slowly. And there were moments when I struggled with my own resentment, remembering her words, the laughter of her friends. Those wounds didn't heal quickly. I continued my friendship with Margaret, visiting her in Vermont every few months. Those trips became my sanctuary, a reminder that I had value beyond my role as Delaney's mother. Beatrice and I grew even closer, if that was possible. She'd risked her friendship with Delaney to be honest with me, and I'd never forget that loyalty. One evening, about 6 months after I'd returned from Vermont, Delaney arrived at my apartment looking nervous. "I have something to show you," she said, pulling out her phone. My stomach clenched. Another video. But what she showed me was different. It was a video she'd recorded herself, just her face close to the camera. "And I made this for my therapy session," she explained. "My therapist suggested I record my thoughts, but I want you to see it." She pressed play. On screen, Delaney looked tired but determined. "I've been thinking a lot about my mother, about how I treated her, about the things I said. My therapist asked me to imagine how I'd feel if my own daughter, if I ever have one, treated me the way I treated my mom." Her voice cracked. And then I couldn't even finish the thought. It was too painful. The idea of my child wishing I'd disappear, laughing about me with friends, seeing me as nothing more than an annoyance. It destroyed me. She wiped her eyes. "I did that to her. I did that to the woman who sacrificed everything to raise me alone, who worked 2 jobs so I could have what I needed, who never gave up on me, even when everyone else did." The video Delaney looked directly into the camera. "I'm not going to say I've changed completely. I still struggle with patience. I still get frustrated sometimes. But I'm trying. I'm really trying to be the daughter she deserves." The video ended. Real Delaney looked at me with vulnerable eyes. "I wanted you to see that, to know that I'm working on this, that I understand what I did wrong." I pulled her into a hug, feeling her tremble against me. "I know you're trying," I said softly. "I can see it." "Is it enough?" she asked, her voice muffled against my shoulder. I pulled back to look at her. "It's a start, and that's all I need right now. A genuine start." Nafonzu Chapter 8. Winter arrived, harsh and unforgiving. The kind of Maine winter that kept you indoors for days, watching snow pile up outside your windows. I'd always hated winter. The cold made my arthritis worse, made everything harder. But this winter felt different, less isolating. Delaney called during a particularly bad storm, her voice concerned. "Mom, do you have enough food? The weather report says it's going to be bad for the next few days." "I'm fine," I assured her. "I stocked up yesterday." "Okay, but would you want company? I could come stay with you. We could ride it out together." The offer surprised me. The old Delaney would have used the storm as an excuse not to visit. "You don't have to do that," I said carefully. "I know I don't have to. I want to, if you want me there." I thought about it. About being snowed in with my daughter for potentially days. About all the ways that could go wrong. All the old resentments that could surface in close quarters. "I'd like that," I said. She arrived an hour later with bags of groceries, board games, and a stack of old photo albums. "I found these in my storage unit," she explained, pulling out the albums. Pictures from when I was a kid. I thought maybe we could look through them together. We spent that evening on my couch, blankets wrapped around us, flipping through photographs of a life I'd almost forgotten. Delaney as a baby, chubby-cheeked and happy. Delaney on her first day of school, missing her front teeth. Delaney at her high school graduation, looking impossibly young. You were so beautiful, I said, touching a photo of her at 16. And I was so angry, she corrected. At everything. At you especially. She turned to look at me. Why did you put up with it? The teenage attitude, the rebellion, all of it. Because you were my daughter. Because I knew the anger was covering up pain from your father leaving. Because I loved you. Delaney was quiet for a moment. Did you ever wish I'd disappear? During those hard years. The question hung in the air between us. I considered lying. Considered saying I'd never had such thoughts. But honesty had brought us this far. There were moments, I admitted slowly, when I fantasized about escape, about what my life would be like without the constant battles, the worry, the hurt. But wishing for peace isn't the same as wishing someone gone. I never wanted you to disappear. I just wanted the pain to stop. That's different than what I did, Delaney said softly. I didn't want the pain to stop. I wanted you to stop, to not exist in my life anymore. Why are you torturing yourself with this? I asked gently. Because I need to understand it. I need to understand how I became someone capable of such cruelty. We talked late into the night, the storm raging outside, the past finally being examined with honest eyes. The next morning, I woke to find Delaney already up, making breakfast in my small kitchen. She'd found my favorite tea, my preferred bread for toast. Small details she'd never noticed before. We spent 3 days together during that storm. We played board games and watched old movies. We talked and we were silent. We existed together in a way we hadn't since she was a child. On the third day, as the storm finally cleared and the sun emerged, Delaney said something that surprised me. I'm glad you disappeared. I looked at her sharply. Not glad in the way that sounds, she amended quickly, but glad that you did what you needed to do. Glad that you didn't just accept how I treated you. Glad that you forced me to see what I was losing. She took my hand. If you hadn't disappeared, I might have lost you forever. Not physically, but in every way that mattered. We would have drifted further and further apart until we were strangers who saw each other at holidays. And now, I asked, now I have a chance to know my mother, really know her, not as an obligation or a burden, but as a person. It was the most healing thing she could have said. Chapter 9. Spring came slowly that year, reluctant and uncertain. My 71st birthday arrived in April. I'd stopped making a big deal of birthdays years ago, when it became clear that celebrating another year closer to death felt less like a victory and more like a reminder. But Delaney had other plans. She showed up at my apartment early that morning with Beatrice in tow. We're kidnapping you, Delaney announced. For the whole day. They took me to brunch at a restaurant overlooking Casco Bay. The three of us sat at a window table, watching boats bob in the harbor, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years, completely content. Beatrice regaled us with stories from our college days, making Delaney laugh at tales of my younger, wilder self. Your mother once stayed up for 48 hours straight to help me study for a chemistry exam, Beatrice said. Even though she wasn't in the class, she just sat with me, making coffee, quizzing me, refusing to let me give up. Delaney looked at me with new eyes. I didn't know that. There's a lot you don't know, I said gently. I had a whole life before you, and I've had a life alongside being your mother. Tell me about it, Delaney said. Please, I want to know. So I did. I told her about my dreams before she was born, about the career in nursing I'd given up when her father left, about the man I'd almost married when she was 10, but didn't, because he couldn't accept being a stepfather, about the paintings I'd created in my 40s that no one ever saw because I was too afraid of criticism. I told her about the woman I'd been before motherhood defined me, and I saw her really seeing me, perhaps for the first time. That evening, Delaney gave me a gift. It was a leather-bound journal, expensive and beautiful. And for your stories, she explained, I want you to write down everything, your childhood, your dreams, your disappointments, all of it, so I can read it, so I can really know you. I ran my fingers over the smooth leather. What if there are things you don't want to know? Then I'll deal with that, she said firmly. But I'm tired of only knowing the parts of you that relate to me. You're more than my mother, and I want to know who you are. I started writing that night, and something strange happened. As I wrote about my life, I rediscovered parts of myself I'd forgotten. The ambitious young woman who'd wanted to be a doctor. The artist who'd seen beauty everywhere. The romantic who'd believed in grand love stories. Motherhood hadn't erased those parts of me. I'd just set them aside, packed them away like I'd packed away Delaney's childhood memorabilia. Maybe it was time to unpack both. Chapter 10. Summer brought changes I hadn't anticipated. Delaney's company offered her a promotion, a significant one that would require her to relocate to Boston. It was a 3-hour drive from Portland, far enough to make casual visits impossible. She came to tell me in person, looking conflicted. "It's everything I've worked for," she said. "More money, more responsibility, more opportunity. But it means leaving Portland, leaving you." A year ago, I would have begged her to stay. Or worse, I would have told her to go while quietly resenting the choice. But I'd learned something during my disappearance. I'd learned that I could survive alone, that I had value beyond my daughter's presence. "You should take it," I said. "You mean that?" "I mean it. This is your life, Delaney. Your career. You can't give up opportunities because I'm here." She looked relieved and guilty in equal measure. "But we've just started to rebuild things. And we'll keep rebuilding. Boston isn't that far. We'll visit. We'll call. We'll make it work." She moved in August. I helped her pack, surprised by how many memories she was taking with her, including several photographs of us together that I didn't even know she had. "I want to remember," she explained when she saw me notice. "I want to remember what we almost lost and what we're building now." The first few months of her absence were harder than I'd expected, but they were also liberating. I joined a painting class at the community center. I volunteered at the local library. I traveled to Vermont to visit Margaret, and we took a road trip through New England, 2 old women seeking beauty and adventure. I learned to be Donna, not just Delaney's mother. Delaney called every Sunday, a routine we established and maintained religiously. Sometimes we talked for 10 minutes, sometimes for an hour, but we talked, really talked. She visited once a month, making the drive from Boston with a dedication that touched me, and I visited her too, taking the bus to see her new apartment, meeting her new friends, being part of her life rather than an obligation she managed from a distance. It wasn't the relationship I'd once dreamed of, the close, daily connection some mothers and daughters have, but it was real, it was honest, and it was built on mutual respect rather than guilt. That fall, Delaney called on a Tuesday evening, which was unusual. Our calls were Sunday rituals. "Mom, I need to tell you something." My heart clenched. That tone in her voice, serious, hesitant. "What is it?" "I've been seeing someone. A therapist. Still. But also, a man. His name is Marcus. He's 48, divorced, has 2 teenage kids." She paused. "It's getting serious, and I wanted you to know, to meet him." The old me would have peppered her with questions, demanded details, tried to control the situation. The new me simply said, "I'd like that." We arranged for me to visit the following weekend. When I met Marcus, I saw immediately what she saw in him. He was kind, attentive, and most importantly, he clearly adored her. But what struck me most was watching Delaney with his children. She was patient with them, engaged, present. She didn't treat them like obligations. Over dinner, Marcus's daughter, a sharp 15-year-old named Claire, asked me what Delaney was like as a kid. Before I could answer, Delaney spoke up. I was difficult, especially to my mom. I put her through hell and she never gave up on me. She looked at me across the table. My mom taught me what unconditional love looks like, even when I didn't deserve it. Claire seemed to sense the weight behind those words. Later, as Delaney walked me to my bus, she said quietly, "I hope I can be as good a mother as you were, as you are." "You will be," I assured her, "because you know what not to do." She laughed, but there were tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry it took me so long to appreciate you." "Better late than never," I said, and I meant it. Chapter 11. The phone call came on a Wednesday in December, 2 days before Christmas. Delaney's voice was shaking. "Mom, I'm at the hospital. Marcus's son was in a car accident. He's going to be okay, but it's bad. Multiple fractures, internal injuries. He's in surgery now. Do you need me to come?" I asked immediately. "Would you? Marcus's ex-wife is here and she's not handling it well. The daughter is terrified. I don't know what to do. I'm on my way." I took the next bus to Boston, arriving at the hospital 4 hours later. I found Delaney in the waiting room, Claire curled against her side, both of them looking exhausted and scared. Delaney's face crumpled with relief when she saw me. "You came." Of course I came. I spent the next 2 days at that hospital, being present in the way I'd learned to be present, not fixing, not controlling, just being there. I brought coffee and food. I sat with Claire when Delaney needed to be with Marcus. I made phone calls to relatives, coordinated logistics, did all the small things that needed doing in a crisis. Marcus's son survived. The surgery was successful, and though recovery would be long, he would heal. On Christmas Day, we celebrated in that hospital room. Me, Delaney, Marcus, Claire, Marcus's ex-wife, and the recovering boy in the bed. It was chaotic and emotional, and nothing like the quiet Christmas I'd planned. It was perfect. That evening, as Delaney drove me back to her apartment, she said, "Thank you for coming, for helping, for being exactly what we needed. That's what mothers do," I said simply. "But I wouldn't have blamed you if you hadn't come. After everything I put you through." I turned to look at her. "Delaney, I disappeared to teach you a lesson, but I also learned one. I learned that holding on to hurt only hurts me more. I learned that forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing to move forward." She was crying now, still driving, tears streaming down her face. "I don't deserve you." "Maybe not," I agreed, "but you have me anyway. That's what love is." We spent Christmas week together, and I got to see the woman my daughter had become. Not perfect, still with flashes of impatience and frustration, but trying, always trying. When I returned to Portland, I felt different, lighter somehow. The weight of resentment I'd carried for so long had finally lifted. I unpacked the boxes in my closet, the ones with Delaney's childhood memories. I put the photographs back on my walls, the artwork back in frames. Not because I was erasing the hurt, but because I was choosing to remember the good alongside the bad. Mahuntawa Chapter 12. Spring came again, as it always does. I was 72 years old, and my body reminded me of it daily. The arthritis was worse. My heart, which had always been strong, was beginning to show signs of wear. My doctor talked about medications, lifestyle changes, the inevitable decline. But I wasn't afraid. I'd learned something in the years since my disappearance. Life wasn't measured in duration, but in depth, in connections that mattered, in moments of genuine understanding. Delaney called me on a Sunday in May, our regular time, but this call was different. "Mom, I'm pregnant." Time stopped. "What?" "I'm pregnant. 3 months. We wanted to wait to tell anyone, but you needed to know." I sat down heavily on my couch, my hand over my mouth. "Are you happy?" I asked. "Terrified," she admitted. "But yes, happy. And I need you, Mom. I need you to teach me how to do this." We talked for hours that day, about pregnancy and motherhood, about fears and hopes, about the kind of mother she wanted to be. "I don't want to make your mistakes," she said carefully, "but I also don't want to make different mistakes trying to avoid yours." "You'll make your own mistakes," I assured her. "Every mother does. What matters is what you do when you realize them." She was quiet for a moment. "What if I'm like I was? What if I resent my child the way I resented you?" Her fear was raw and real. "Then you'll recognize it," I said, "because you know what it looks like now. You know what it feels like from both sides, and that awareness will make all the difference." The pregnancy progressed. I visited Boston often, helping Delaney prepare the nursery, attending doctor appointments, being present in the way she needed, and I watched her transform, not into me, but into her own version of a mother, fierce and protective and so full of love it radiated from her. The baby, a girl, was born in November, on a cold day that reminded me of the day Delaney was born 46 years earlier. They named her Dorothea, after me. My middle name, which Delaney had never particularly liked. "I want her to carry part of you," Delaney explained, holding the tiny bundle. "I want her to know where she comes from." Holding my granddaughter, I felt something complete inside me. A circle closing, a story finding its ending, or perhaps its beginning. But I also felt a shadow of sadness, because I knew, even then, that I wouldn't be here to watch Dorothea grow up. My body was failing, slowly but inevitably. The doctors were using words like declining and managing symptoms. I had maybe 5 years, maybe 10 if I was lucky. Delaney seemed to sense it too. She held on to me tighter now, called more often, visited when she could despite the demands of new motherhood. "I'm not ready to lose you," she said one evening when Dorothea was 6 months old. We were sitting in her living room, the baby asleep between us. "No one's ever ready," I replied gently, "but I just got you back. We just figured this out." I took her hand. "And that's the gift, isn't it? We got this time. We got to rebuild. We got to have this." I gestured at the scene around us, the 3 of us together, 3 generations, connected by blood and by the hard work of repairing what had been broken. "Some people never get that chance, Delaney. Some people die with things unsaid, relationships unfixed. We were lucky. It doesn't feel like enough time." "It never is," I agreed, "but it's what we have." That conversation stayed with me in the months that followed. I thought about legacy, about what I would leave behind. Not money. I had little of that. Not possessions. Most of what I owned was old and worn. What I would leave was a story, a cautionary tale and a redemption arc rolled into one, a reminder that relationships can be repaired, but only if both people are willing to do the work. I started writing more in the journal Delaney had given me, not just my history, but lessons I'd learned, advice for the granddaughter I wouldn't see grow up, wisdom earned through pain and survival. I wrote about the importance of boundaries, about the difference between love and obligation, about how disappearing sometimes means finding yourself. And I wrote about forgiveness, not the kind that erases harm, but the kind that allows you to move forward while acknowledging what happened. On a gray December afternoon, almost exactly 3 years after I'd first seen that video, Delaney came to visit with Dorothea. The baby was walking now, toddling around my apartment with fearless abandon. Delaney chased after her, laughing, patient, even when Dorothea knocked over a plant or grabbed at fragile things. I watched them and saw hope. Hope that this generation would do better, that Delaney would remember what it felt like to be dismissed, and she would never dismiss her daughter. "Mom," Delaney said, settling beside me on the couch while Dorothea played with blocks on the floor, "I never properly thanked you." "For what?" "For disappearing, for forcing me to see what I was doing, for not accepting my cruelty as normal." She turned to face me fully. "You could have just kept taking it, kept being the patient, long-suffering mother who accepted whatever scraps I threw your way. But you didn't. You stood up for yourself, and that taught me something crucial." "What's that?" "That loving someone doesn't mean letting them hurt you, that you can love fiercely and still demand to be treated with respect." She glanced at Dorothea. "I want to teach her that. I want her to know that love should never require you to diminish yourself." "You will," I assured her. We sat together in comfortable silence, watching the baby play, and I felt peace settle over me. Not happiness. There was too much loss, too much awareness of limited time for pure happiness, but peace. The peace of knowing I'd done what I needed to do, that I'd fought for myself when it mattered, that I'd rebuilt a relationship on honest foundations rather than false ones. The video that had shattered me had also, ultimately, saved me. It had given me the push I needed to stop accepting less than I deserved. And while the hurt would never fully disappear, it had transformed into something else, into wisdom, into strength, into a story that might help someone else someday. As the winter sun set outside my window, casting long shadows across the room, I realized something profound. My daughter had wished I would disappear, and in a way, I had. The woman I'd been, the one who begged for crumbs and called it a feast, had vanished. In her place was someone stronger, someone who knew her worth, someone who loved deeply but no longer at the expense of herself. That woman, I thought as I watched my daughter and granddaughter, was someone I was proud to be, even if the time I had left to be her was heartbreakingly short. The end. Epilogue. The years that followed were a study in bittersweet moments. I was 75 when my heart finally gave its first serious warning. A mild heart attack on a Tuesday morning while I was watering the roses in my small garden. I'd been reaching for the hose when the pain struck. Sharp, radiating, unmistakable. Beatrice found me 2 hours later. I'd managed to call her before losing consciousness, and she'd called the ambulance. When I woke up in the hospital, she was sitting beside my bed, her face pale with worry. "You scared me half to death, Donna." "Sorry," I whispered, my voice hoarse. "Didn't mean to. The doctor said I'd been lucky." The damage was minimal, manageable with medication and lifestyle changes, but it was a warning shot across the bow, my body telling me that time was running out. Delaney arrived from Boston that evening, Dorothea in tow. My granddaughter was 3 years old now, all dark curls and curious eyes. She climbed carefully onto my hospital bed, her small hand patting my arm with surprising gentleness. "Grandma Donna hurt?" she asked. "A little bit," I admitted, "but I'm getting better." Delaney stood at the foot of my bed, her eyes red from crying. "You can't do this to me," she said, her voice breaking. "Not yet. I need more time." "I'm okay," I assured her. This was just a reminder. A reminder of what? That we don't get forever. That we need to make the time we have count. She pulled up a chair and sat down heavily. "Move in with me. Come to Boston. I have space. Marcus and I can take care of you." The offer was genuine, motivated by love and fear in equal measure. But I shook my head. "I appreciate it, sweetheart, but I'm not ready to give up my independence yet. I'm not ready to be someone who needs taking care of." "That's not what I meant." "I know what you meant, and I love you for offering. But right now, I'm okay here, in my home, living my life." We compromised. I agreed to wear a medical alert device at all times. I agreed to weekly check-in calls beyond our usual Sunday conversations. I agreed to consider moving if my health deteriorated further. But for now, I stayed in Portland, in my small apartment filled with memories and photographs, living as independently as my aging body would allow. Beatrice became even more essential to my life. We had lunch together twice a week, took slow walks along the Eastern Promenade when the weather permitted, sat together in comfortable silence when words weren't necessary. One afternoon, about 6 months after my heart attack, Beatrice said something that surprised me. "I'm proud of you, you know." I looked up from my tea. "For what?" "For not giving up. For fighting back when Delaney hurt you. For rebuilding on your terms instead of hers." She set down her own cup. "I've watched you transform over these years. From someone who accepted crumbs to someone who demands a full meal. It's been remarkable. I had good support," I said. "You, mostly. Margaret, Dr. Sato. I couldn't have done it alone. Maybe not. But you were the one who made the hard choices. You were the one who disappeared when you needed to. You were the one who set boundaries and maintained them." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You taught me something too, that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. That age doesn't mean you have to accept disrespect." I thought about that conversation for days afterward, about the ripple effects of our choices, how standing up for myself had influenced not just Delaney, but others who witnessed it. Dorothea grew into a bright, spirited child. Delaney brought her to Portland once a month, religiously, and I watched my granddaughter discover the world with wonder and fearlessness. What struck me most was watching Delaney mother her. She was patient in ways I'd never seen her be patient. She listened when Dorothea talked. Really listened. She made time for play and connection, never treating her daughter like an interruption or an obligation. One evening, when Dorothea was 4.5, she threw a spectacular tantrum in my apartment. Something about wanting a cookie before dinner. Delaney handled it calmly, firmly, without the explosions of frustration I remembered from my own parenting years. After Dorothea had calmed down and was playing quietly in the corner, I asked Delaney about it. "How do you stay so calm?" She looked at me with those serious eyes that had replaced the careless ones from years before, because I remember what it felt like to be dismissed, to have my feelings treated as inconvenient. I swore I'd never make Dorothea feel that way. She paused. And because every time I feel that frustration rising, I remember what I almost lost with you. I remember that video, those words I said, and I refuse to become that person again. The growth in her was real and hard-won. But I also saw moments when the old patterns threatened to resurface, when she was tired or stressed, when Dorothea pushed her limits, when life felt overwhelming. In those moments, I watched her pause, breathe, choose differently. It wasn't effortless, it was work, constant, conscious work. But she did it. My 76th birthday arrived with an unexpected gift. Delaney and Marcus threw me a party, a real party, with decorations and cake and guests I actually wanted to see. Beatrice was there, of course. Margaret had made the trip from Vermont, some of my neighbors from the building, people who'd become friends over the years, even Dr. Sato. who was officially retired but had remained in my life as a friend. As I looked around the room at these people who'd chosen to celebrate me, I felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This was what I'd been missing for so many years. Genuine connection. Relationships built on mutual care rather than obligation. Delaney stood up to make a toast. Most of you know my mom and I had a rough patch a few years ago. What you might not know is that it was entirely my fault. She looked directly at me. I took her for granted. I treated her like an inconvenience instead of a person. And when she disappeared for a few weeks, when I couldn't find her and thought I might have lost her forever, I realized what an absolute fool I'd been. Her voice wavered. My mom taught me the most important lesson of my life, and she taught it by refusing to accept my cruelty, by standing up for herself, by showing me that love doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. She raised her glass. To Donna Pemberton, the strongest woman I know, the best mother I could have asked for, even when I was too stupid to realize it. Happy birthday, Mom. The room erupted in applause. I wiped tears from my eyes, overwhelmed. Later, as people mingled and chatted, Marcus pulled me aside. I want you to know something, he said quietly. Delaney talks about you all the time, about what you taught her, about the relationship you've rebuilt. He glanced over at his daughter Claire, now 20 and visiting from college. She's helped me be better with my own kids, to appreciate them while I have them, to not take their presence for granted. He cleared his throat. What you did, standing up for yourself, disappearing when you needed to, it didn't just change Delaney. It changed our whole family dynamic. We all learned from it. After everyone left, and it was just Delaney, Dorothea, and me cleaning up, my granddaughter crawled into my lap. Grandma Donna, why did you disappear? She asked, with the blunt curiosity of a 4-year-old. Delaney froze, a stack of plates in her hands. I looked at my granddaughter's innocent face and chose my words carefully. Sometimes, when people hurt us, we need to step away, not to punish them, but to protect ourselves, to remember who we are. Did Mommy hurt you? She did. Not on purpose, but yes. Dorothea processed this, and then you came back. Yes, because she learned and changed, and because I loved her enough to give her another chance. Dorothea nodded, as if this made perfect sense. If I hurt Mommy, will you disappear again? I pulled her close. No, sweetheart. That was a one-time lesson, but I hope you learn from it anyway. I hope you grow up knowing that loving someone means treating them with respect. Later, after Delaney and Dorothea had gone back to their hotel, I sat alone in my apartment and thought about legacy. What would I leave behind when I was gone? Not much in terms of material things. My apartment was rented. My possessions were few and mostly worthless to anyone but me. But I would leave a story. A testament to the power of boundaries, of self-respect, of refusing to accept less than you deserve. I would leave a daughter who'd learn to be better, and a granddaughter who would grow up seeing what healthy relationships looked like. That was enough. The decline, when it came, was gradual. At 77, I needed a cane for longer walks. At 78, I developed diabetes that required careful management. By 79, the stairs to my second-floor apartment had become a genuine challenge. Delaney renewed her offer for me to move to Boston. This time, I considered it more seriously. I'm not saying yes yet, I told her during one of our Sunday calls, but I'm not saying no either. What would make you say yes? She asked. I thought about it. If I can't live independently anymore, if I become a danger to myself, if staying here means isolating myself, will you tell me when we reach that point, or will you try to tough it out? Her question was pointed, knowing. I'll tell you. I promised. I've learned my lesson about suffering in silence. That summer, I visited Boston for 2 weeks. Delaney and Marcus had converted their home office into a bedroom for me, complete with an adjoining bathroom. It was comfortable, welcoming, clearly prepared with thought and care. I spent my days there watching Dorothea, now 5 and starting kindergarten. I helped with homework, played endless games of pretend, read stories until my voice grew hoarse, and I watched Delaney juggle work and motherhood and marriage, all while making time for me, making sure I felt included, valued, part of the family rather than a burden. Oh, how are you really doing? I asked her one evening after Dorothea had gone to bed. We were sitting on her back porch, the summer evening warm and gentle. Honestly, I'm exhausted. Work is demanding. Dorothea is a handful. Marcus's kids are struggling with some things, and I'm constantly worried about you being alone in Portland. She looked at me, but I'm also happy, really happy, because I have these relationships that matter, and I know how easily I could have lost them all. You're doing a good job, I told her, with all of it. Some days I feel like I'm barely holding it together. That's called being human, I said gently. No one holds it together all the time. She laughed, but there were tears in her eyes. I keep thinking about when you're gone, about how I'll handle it, and I panic. Don't panic about the future, I advised. Be present now. That's all we can do. On my last day in Boston, as I was packing to return to Portland, Delaney came to my temporary room. I know you're not ready yet, but when you are, we want you here. Not because we have to take care of you, but because we want you in our lives. In Dorothea's life, every day, not just monthly visits. I hugged her tight. I know. And when I'm ready, I'll come. Back in Portland, my apartment felt emptier than before. Not lonely exactly, but quiet in a way that emphasized my solitude. Beatrice noticed the change in me. You're thinking about moving, aren't you? We were having our usual lunch, sitting by the window in her favorite cafe. Maybe, eventually. What's holding you back? I considered the question. Pride, I think. Not wanting to admit that I can't do this anymore. Not wanting to be someone who needs help. Beatrice set down her fork. Donna, you taught Delaney that love doesn't mean accepting disrespect. Now you need to teach yourself that accepting help isn't weakness. Her words stayed with me. The decision was made for me on a cold February morning, 2 months after I turned 80. I fell in my bathroom, slipping on a wet floor I hadn't noticed. The fall wasn't serious, just bruising, no breaks, but the aftermath was terrifying. I couldn't get up. I pressed my medical alert button and waited for help to arrive, lying on the cold tile floor, feeling every one of my 80 years. The EMTs were kind and professional. They helped me up, checked me over, recommended I see my doctor, but the fear stayed with me. What if the fall had been worse? What if I hadn't been able to reach the alert button? What if? I called Delaney that evening. I'm ready, I said simply. She understood immediately. I'll start making arrangements. The move happened quickly. Delaney and Marcus drove to Portland with a rental truck. We packed up my apartment. 80 years of life condensed into boxes and bags. I gave away most of my furniture to neighbors. I kept my photographs, my journals, my mother's quilt, the essentials of memory, if not of daily living. Saying goodbye to Beatrice was the hardest part. It's not that far, she reminded me, though we both knew that at our age, any distance could become insurmountable. We'll call, we'll visit. This isn't goodbye forever. Just goodbye for now, I agreed, though we both heard the lie in it. The truth was, this might be our last hug, our last conversation in person. At 80 and 82, every goodbye carried that weight. Thank you, I told her, for everything, for showing me that video, even though it hurt, for supporting me when I disappeared, for being my friend through all of it. Thank you for being worth supporting, she replied, tears streaming down her weathered face. Moving to Boston was both harder and easier than I'd expected. Harder because it meant surrendering the independence I'd fought so hard to maintain. Easier because Delaney and her family made it clear I wasn't a burden, but a welcome addition. Dorothea was thrilled to have me there full-time. She'd burst into my room every morning, climbing into my bed to tell me about her dreams, her plans for the day, her endless observations about the world. Grandma Donna, did you know that butterflies taste with their feet? She'd ask, her eyes wide with wonder. And I'd spend my mornings being educated by a 5-year-old, and it was glorious. Delaney and I fell into new routines. She'd check on me before leaving for work, making sure I had everything I needed. We'd have dinner together most nights, the 4 of us, 5 when Marcus's kids visited, talking about our days, laughing, being a family. But there were hard moments too, moments when I needed help with things I'd once done easily, buttoning a shirt, opening a jar, climbing stairs. Moments when I felt like a burden despite everyone's assurances otherwise. One evening, after I'd dropped a glass and broken down crying in frustration, Delaney sat with me in my room. Talk to me, she said gently. I hate this. Being old, being dependent, being unable to do simple things. I know. You must hate it too, having to take care of me. She grabbed my hand firmly. Mom, listen to me. Taking care of you isn't a burden. It's a privilege. Do you understand that? After what I almost lost, after how close I came to ruining our relationship forever, being able to help you now feels like a gift. She wiped her own tears. Every day I get with you is a day I didn't think I'd have. Every moment I can support you is a moment I'm grateful for. So please, stop apologizing for being human. Her words broke something open in me. I'd spent so many years being strong, being independent, refusing to need anyone. Maybe it was time to learn a different kind of strength, the strength to accept help, the strength to be vulnerable, the strength to trust that I could be loved even when I wasn't self-sufficient. My 81st birthday came quietly, just family this time. Delaney, Marcus, Dorothea, and Marcus's kids, Claire and Jonathan. We had dinner at home, cake that Dorothea helped bake, presents that were thoughtful and simple. Dorothea gave me a drawing she'd made at school. It showed 5 stick figures holding hands, her parents, and me. Above us, she'd written in wobbly letters, "My family." I hung it on the wall by my bed, where I could see it every morning. That night, unable to sleep, I pulled out the journals I'd been keeping since Delaney gave me that first leather-bound book years ago. I read through my entries, watching my own evolution on the pages, the hurt and betrayal from discovering that video, the anger that had fueled my disappearance, the slow process of rebuilding trust, the hard-won wisdom about boundaries and self-respect. And finally, these recent entries about aging, about dependence, about learning to receive care instead of only giving it. It was all there, a complete arc of growth and change. I turned to a fresh page and began to write, "Dear Dorothea, you're only 6 years old as I write this, so you won't read these words for many years, maybe not until I'm gone. But I want you to know my story, because it's part of your story too. Your mother and I had a difficult journey. We hurt each other, we lost each other, and we found each other again. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't perfect, but it was real. I want you to learn from our mistakes. I want you to know that love without respect isn't really love at all, that you should never diminish yourself to make someone else comfortable, that boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges that make real connection possible. I also want you to know that people can change. Your mother changed. I changed. We grew together instead of apart, and that made all the difference. When you're older, you'll face choices about how to treat the people in your life. I hope you choose kindness, but I also hope you choose self-respect. Those two things can coexist, and they must. Don't be like I was, accepting crumbs and calling it a feast. Don't be like your mother was, taking people for granted because they'll always be there. Be better than both of us. But most of all, be yourself. Be brave enough to stand up for yourself when necessary, and brave enough to apologize when you're wrong. I love you, little one. Even though I won't be here to watch you grow up, know that you carry pieces of all of us. Your mother, your father, and yes, me too. Make us proud. Grandma Donna. I closed the journal and set it aside. Tomorrow, I'd add it to the box of things I was leaving for Dorothea. The journals, the photographs, the accumulated wisdom of a long life. For tonight, I simply sat in the quiet of my room and felt grateful. Grateful for the years I'd had. Grateful for the relationship I'd rebuilt with my daughter. Grateful for the granddaughter who would carry forward lessons learned from our struggles. It wasn't the ending I would have written at 70, when that video had shattered my world, but it was an honest ending, a real one. And perhaps that was the final lesson, that life rarely gives us the endings we imagine. It gives us the endings we earn through the choices we make, the boundaries we set, the forgiveness we grant, and the love we choose to express even when it's hard. I'd disappeared once to teach a lesson. Now, as I approached the final disappearance that awaits us all, I was surrounded by love, imperfect, hard-won, but absolutely real. That was enough. That was everything. The end.